Chris leases a new car every 3 years. Emma buys a used car and drives it into the ground. They both think they made the smarter choice. Chris is wrong, and the number that separates their net worth after 15 years will make you want to sell your lease tomorrow. Let's run the real math. Let's make this completely fair. Chris and Emma are the same age, same city, same income. They both earn $65,000 a year. They both need a reliable car to get to work. The only difference is what they decide to do about it. Chris walks into a dealership and leases a brand new 2024 Honda Accord. The monthly payment is $450. He puts nothing down. No down payment, no trade-in, nothing. The lease runs for 36 months. At the end of 3 years, he hands the keys back and leases something new. His friends think he always drives a nice car. He thinks he's being smart by never dealing with repairs. Chris feels like he is winning. Emma walks into a used car lot and buys a 2019 Honda Accord. Same model, 5 years older. She pays $18,000 cash from her savings. No monthly payment, no interest, no lease terms. Just a car she owns outright on day one. Her coworkers ask her why she drives an older car. She doesn't have a great answer at lunch, but she has a spreadsheet. On day one, Chris has a brand new car smell and a $450 monthly obligation. Emma has a paid-off car and $450 a month she can do whatever she wants with. It doesn't feel like Emma is winning, but feelings and math have never agreed on much. Here is what leasing actually is before we run a single number. When you lease a car, you are not buying the car. You are renting the car from the dealership. You pay for the depreciation of the car during the lease period, plus interest, plus profit margin for the dealer. The average new car loses roughly 20% of its value in the first year alone, and another 15% in year 2. By year 3, when Chris hands back the keys, the car has lost roughly 40 to 50% of its original value. Chris paid for all of that depreciation. He has nothing to show for it. Not $1 of equity. Not one asset he owns. Just 3 years of payments and the right to start over again. Emma's 2019 Accord lost most of its depreciation before she bought it. The steepest part of the depreciation curve, years 1 through 3, already happened. She bought the car at the bottom of that curve. From here, her car loses value slowly, and she owns every dollar of remaining value outright. Let's look at the real numbers through year 3. Chris has paid $450 times 36 months. That is $16,200 in lease payments. He also paid for insurance on a leased vehicle, which runs about $150 more per month than Emma's insurance on an older owned car. That is another $5,400 over 3 years. His total cost of the lease period, roughly $21,600. At the end of year 3, Chris owns nothing. Zero equity, zero asset. The dealership takes the car back. Emma paid $18,000 upfront for her car. Her insurance runs about $100 per month. She spent roughly $1,200 in maintenance over 3 years. Oil changes, tires, one brake job. Her total 3-year cost, roughly $22,800. But at the end of year 3, Emma still owns a car worth approximately $11,000 to $13,000. Her net cost after accounting for retained asset value is somewhere between $9,800 and $11,800. Chris's net cost is $21,600. Emma is already ahead by roughly $10,000 in 3 years on a car that her coworkers raised an eyebrow at. But here is where most people stop the analysis. They compare the monthly payments, decide leasing feels more manageable, and sign the paperwork. What they never calculate is what happens when you run this decision out over 15 years. Chris leases 5 cars over 15 years. Each lease averages $450 a month. His total lease payments over 15 years, $81,000. His insurance premium runs higher each lease cycle because new cars cost more to insure. Over 15 years, his total insurance overage compared to Emma, roughly $27,000. His total transportation cost over 15 years, approximately $108,000. At the end of year 15, Chris owns nothing. No car, no asset, no equity, just receipts. Emma drives her 2019 Accord for 8 years. At year 8, the car has 120,000 miles and she sells it for $4,000. She takes that $4,000 plus the $450 a month she never spent on lease payments and buys a 2027 used car for $22,000. She pays cash again, no monthly payment, no interest. She drives that car for the remaining 7 years of our comparison period. Her total transportation cost over 15 years, including both car purchases, insurance, and maintenance, approximately $52,000 to $58,000. At the end of year 15, Emma owns a car worth roughly $8,000 to $10,000. Her net transportation cost after asset value, approximately $42,000 to $50,000. Chris spent $108,000 and owns nothing. Emma spent $42,000 to $50,000 and owns an asset. The gap is somewhere between $58,000 and $66,000 in Chris's pocket if he had made Emma's choice. Now let's add the investment dimension, because this is where the math becomes genuinely uncomfortable. Emma never had a $450 monthly lease payment. From day one, she took that $450 a month and invested it in a total market index fund. At 10% average annual return over 15 years, that $450 a month compounds to approximately $186,000 to $194,000. She did not get a raise. She did not make a single extra dollar. She simply redirected the money Chris was handing to a dealership every month into an investment account instead. Chris, at the end of 15 years, has his current leased car, which he will hand back in a few months, and whatever savings he managed to accumulate elsewhere. Emma, at the end of 15 years, has a paid-off car worth $8,000 to $10,000 and an investment portfolio worth $186,000 to $194,000. The total wealth gap between them is approximately $194,000 to $204,000 from one car decision made once, 15 years ago. Now, before you close this video and go cancel your lease, there are situations where leasing makes sense, and pretending otherwise would make me exactly the kind of one-sided financial content creator I cannot stand. Business owners who can deduct the lease payment as a business expense change the math significantly. If Chris runs a business and writes off his $450 monthly payment, his actual after-tax cost drops to somewhere between $300 and $350 a month, depending on his tax bracket. That changes the calculation. Not enough to erase the gap, but enough to narrow it meaningfully. People who drive very high mileage can sometimes come out ahead leasing. If Emma drove 25,000 miles a year instead of 12,000, her used car would depreciate faster and require more maintenance. High mileage drivers eat through used cars differently. The math shifts, though leasing still comes with mileage caps that create their own penalties. And there is a real argument for leasing if you genuinely cannot afford unexpected repair bills. A leased car is under warranty for the entire lease period. If Emma's transmission fails at year 4, that is a $3,000 to $5,000 repair. For someone with no emergency fund, that is a financial emergency. For someone with a properly funded emergency fund, it is an inconvenience. The lease as insurance argument is real, but it is also a symptom of a deeper financial problem, not a solution to it. Here is the thing nobody says out loud about car leasing. The dealership designed the lease product, not you. The dealership calculated what monthly payment feels manageable. The dealership structured the residual value, the money factor, and the acquisition fee to maximize their profit. Every piece of a lease is engineered to make the dealership money while giving you the feeling of affordability. The $450 a month feels like less than $18,000 up front. That is not an accident. That is the product working as designed. Chris and Emma both needed a car. They both solved the same problem. But one of them solved it in a way that cost her $42,000 to $50,000. The other solved it in a way that cost him $108,000 and left him with nothing to show for it. The car you drive does not build wealth. The money you do not spend on the car you drive does. And the next time someone tells you leasing makes sense because you always have a new car and never deal with repairs, ask them one question. What happens to the money you would have saved if you bought used instead? Because the answer to that question is sitting in Emma's investment account. and it has been growing for 15 years.